Welcome to the Underground, the Steel City Underground, the black and gold standard for Pittsburgh Steelers coverage. Now, here are your hosts, Joe Kuzma and Brian E. Roach.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of the Steel City Underground podcast. My name is Joe Kuzma, and I'm finally rejoined with my colleague, my cohort, my comrade, my partner in crime, A1, Mr. Brian E. Roach. Brian, what's going on?
I am just happy as a pig in you-know-what.
Oh, geez. So, for some reason, we were just singing some nursery rhymes off air here, and I felt we needed to bring it on air because I saw a meme the other day. Do you do the memes, Brian? Do you do the memes? I'm doing my David Letterman impression. You do the memes?
I understand that memes exist, and when they're forced upon me, I deal with them.
Yeah, so somebody, it's the I was today days old when I learned whatever. And one of them was, it was something like my 3 or 4 year old blew my mind kind of thing by asking if Bingo was the name of the farmer or the dog. And you were saying within the syntax of what he had a dog and Bingo was his name-o. You would assume it's the dog, but I don't know, man. Bingo could be the farmer. Maybe it could be both. We can maybe have both. The best you have your cake and eat it too.
No, then you'd have to have, and Bingo was their name's O, as opposed to Bingo was his name O.
Yeah.
No, I stand firm behind my English teacher's lessons that syntactically based on placement and speech construction of that sentence, the dog's name is Bingo.
Did you have any scary teachers when you were younger, like the ones that did they have like a paddle or anything hanging from their chalkboard like my second grade teacher did?
When I was in the 6th grade, my English social studies teacher had a paddle with her name. It was acrylic, and her name was engraved in the paddle so that if you got paddled, her name would be broadcast across your ass. And that lasted until I became her student because she broke it on me.
Oh, no way. No way. Get out of town.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. She broke it on me.
Well, I went to Catholic school, and I could thank like a lot of my knee problems from having to kneel. That teacher did not use the paddle, but she was one of the few non-nun teachers from back in the day that was the old dinosaur that was still roaming the earth at that point when I was a youngster. And man, I'll tell you what, I was terrified of her, and I should be. And it was like one of these things where I think every boy in the class was in constant trouble, but all the girls were angels, of course. So where that leads us to whatever we're talking about today, I have no idea. We got way off track, but I don't know. I'm not beating anybody with paddles. It was just something that came to my mind because you were talking about the teacher who taught you the bingo thing. And we did a draft night bingo of our own.
Yes, we did.
Thanks to Tina Christina Rivers. I don't know what to call her anymore. She's throwing me off. It's like Tina, Christina. Oh, that's right. There was somebody that shared a name with her that was like some psychopath or whatever. She's going to crack up, and then she's also going to be mortified if I share the story. So I'm going to stop right there. That's why it's kind of like why you're Brian E. Roach. Isn't there like a Brian Roach that's a serial killer or something out there?
Of course there has to be.
Yeah, that's why I'm just, I don't know. I don't go by Joseph unless it's my mom or my wife trying to channel being my boss, which, don't tell her that she's not my boss. I'm allowed to say that, by the way. I have her permission.
You are.
But anyways, yeah. We had the bingo thing. We were talking about all the stuff with draft nights, whether or not there would be draft hats, whether or not Goodell would be booed and all these other things. And I guess it's really the only thing we have to dwell on still. We got the schedule last week. Me and Zach hammered that. Zach nearly created a 2 or 3 other podcasts out of it because I was just asking him the lightning round stuff real quick. But I know you didn't get to opine. I know we'll talk about it more later. But just any thoughts you want to give since you didn't get to, voice your opinion on the Steelers schedule or upcoming schedule. Granted, we're under the, what do you want to say, the guise that, or the thought that all these games will get played as scheduled as is, and we're not going to have like Pandemic, the sequel or something.
Well, my view is whoever's in front of them, they'll play them. What difference does it make? I thought the schedule wasn't a bad schedule overall. I don't think it is necessarily as weak as the strength of schedule guys are saying it is. But hey, we're at least we're not going to the West Coast multiple times.
Yeah, well, or at all.
Yeah.
So I mean that definitely works out. They're still going to Florida though. Like Florida's the bugaboo. They don't have to worry about going to Oakland ever again, apparently. So that's good.
Yes.
But San Francisco, that's still another spot. But Oakland was always like literally the black hole. They don't go to Philadelphia. That's good too. Philadelphia comes to Pittsburgh. And then what did I say? So there's one in Florida. There's not like a bunch of Florida games, but you could pretty much chalk that up as an L already. And what was the other one?
Dallas? Do they have to go to Dallas? Or
they do go to Dallas, but they don't go to Denver. So that was the other one.
Okay, good.
Yeah,
that's good.
Yeah, and then there's Ben may be eating some turducken or something, or a turkey leg or whatever, on Thanksgiving. So you got some fun things to look forward to.
And that's interesting. I've seen a lot of speculation. People asking of if you could go to any one game this year, what game would you go? And a lot of people are answering Thanksgiving. And are they single? What's the deal there? I think I'd be in deep trouble if I said I was going to the Thanksgiving game.
Well, you get quite the trek, but also don't forget that this is it's like an 8:30 or 8:25 kick Thanksgiving night. So, I mean, a lot of people are already out shopping or camping outside of like a Best Buy or something on the sidewalk. Boy, that's going to be interesting too if we do have a pandemic sequel. What are people going to do? 6 foot distance. You're going to have people 2 miles down the road just to try and get into Walmart. But that would be crazy. I hadn't even thought of that. But rather than do that, I think I would rather be at a football game myself. Any football game. I've nearly gone. I have family down in the Dallas area, and nearly gone twice now. I think the one game was Cowboys Saints, and maybe the other was like Cowboys Dolphins or something. I wasn't a fan of anybody playing, but just for the spectacle and the ambience and saying that you've been there, I was going to go. And a lot of people complain about ticket prices there, but they don't realize that the Cowboys Stadium, the whole darn thing is like a club seating thing. It's like the first 4 tiers of it, at least, from like end of the end zone to end of the end zone, and then even in the end zones they have, like the Steelers have. I don't know if it's still the Legends Club or whatever. It used to be the Legends Club. I know when they added on, maybe that got revised a little bit, but the plush seats, the recliner type seats in the back of the end zone by the field goal post. Yeah. But then they have like these glass sliding doors. It's almost like a back porch or something. It wraps all the way around where it's corporate stuff, because there's no way in hell I would want to sit. You wouldn't be able to see anything. You would be looking at the rear end of like somebody running cables for TV, for example. There would just be so many bodies between you and the field, but you're at field level and there's TVs in there, and I'm sure it's catered and everything else like that. And you get to tell everyone, hey, I went to the Cowboys game and sat in this suite and couldn't see any of the game, just looking at like the guy holding the down marker. You probably can't even see the guy holding the down markers or the kids running the football, because there's just so much personnel. You have the benches and stuff, you know what I mean? I don't know.
Yeah.
I guess you wouldn't even have the crowd noise unless you had like the sliding doors open or whatever. But they also have like the entrance at the 50, and there's the big Dallas Star, and there's like the bar. There's a bar on each side of it, and that's like the tunnel that comes back from the Cowboys locker room where they do all the introductions. You usually see it. If you're not familiar with it, you could just like replay one of these games, especially a primetime game. They usually show some clip of it. It may even be in Madden or something too, if I'm thinking correctly. But yeah, all that's at a premium. So then you actually get to like the 100 level or whatever it is, and everything between from like goal line to goal line, man, or beyond it, back of the end zones. That's all considered club. And then there's like, when you're at Hines Field, that's not considered a club level. You go up another level and it's like the 200 level or whatever. It's that middle deck between the upper deck and the lower level. Well, they have like 2 of these other extra decks that are like club or whatever there too. It's like the whole thing is club seating unless you're in the rafters, or they have like that, the end zone kind of like, I don't want to say it's like not like a patio. What am I looking for? Like not even like a deck. It's like, the Steelers used to have that plaza, like an open plaza, except it's kind of elevated, and there's standing room seats there, and you're still going to pay, like, I think on Thanksgiving against like maybe a no-name team that they were playing at that time, or even the Cowboys not being very good. I'm talking, well, when have they been good? But anyways, I'm still even talking 5 years ago or something, you know what I mean? They may have had a chance, or, one of those games may have been like where, I think the one was the big Tony Romo comeback, and he got hurt immediately after coming back, like a quarter in, you're like, oh no. But those games, I mean, you're still talking $100 and some bucks a piece firsthand if you're able to get them firsthand. What a lot of people aren't recognizing too, talking ticket sales, and I know we've both dealt with this, a lot of stuff that comes through StubHub charges. So if I'm selling like a Steelers, I have season tickets, let's say, partial anyways, and you do. So you go to sell them on StubHub, and StubHub, let's say your ticket is $100. Well, you got to sell it for like $125, $130 in order to make your money, your $100 back, because that's what they're charging you. But then they also charge another like $30 to the person that's buying it, and they pay like $160, and it's like, it's such a racket. So you got to understand, it's not necessarily the NFL or the Cowboys or anybody trying to put the screws to anyone. Number one, the Cowboys tickets are club level and premium to begin with, and they're a hot ticket. It's a large, double multi whatever metropolitan area with Fort Worth there too. The stadium sits right in between both cities. They do not usually have trouble getting, 70,000 people at the very minimum. I mean, I think it holds more probably. I know they've gotten up to like 100,000 when there's, Final Four or whatever, when it's just a basketball court and they could do floor seating and stuff. But you just have to understand that some of it isn't price. The price gouging is like from the idiots who buy up all the tickets and then try and resell them and make a buck.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, it'll be interesting for me to get involved in that side of the things. I'm usually just the buyer. But I might be the seller this year too. Who knows? Yeah,
we'll see. You could sell to me at any time, provided I'm not already going. What am I going to do with extra tickets? Unless, I don't need, unless I want social distancing. But I'd already talked about that. I don't know if I said that on the air, but when it's cold, I wear a baklava already and already have the face covering and whatnot. So, I like to stay warm, and I'm not some type of like sissy that's like super cold, like in November or anything like that. But I have like the nice little kind of the replica wide receiver gloves, and I'll wear those because they look cool. So, but if I need to wear a mask, I can wear a mask, whatever. It'll make drinking beer a little difficult. Maybe I'll need a straw. Maybe I'll put a little hole in the middle of it, and that'll work. But anyways, I guess I got your opinion on the schedule, and I went off on a tangent because I was talking to somebody about tickets and ticket pricing and things like that. And lo and behold, here I am defending the Cowboys and pricing schemes and that. But it's really no different in Pittsburgh or anywhere else you go. And they become like the Browns games the Steelers Browns games up in Cleveland. The openers for the last couple of years, the Browns fans know that Steelers fans will buy up those tickets and pay a premium for them. So they'll pay 2 or 3 times what the face value is, and they pay for a portion of their season, whether it's a quarter or a half, depending on how much they can bilk you for. So that's what you got to be careful about. I read somewhere somebody spent like $900 a ticket or something to sit in like the lower bowl, and I'm like, you're out of your mind. Like, $900 should get you most of the season, if not, depending on where you're sitting, you could maybe the whole thing if you're smart about it, at least. You know what I mean? So, just be smart out there, folks. And that kind of segues into, I'm still out here promoting the Jacksonville Tailgate stuff too. And I got some other names that I'm passing some of your information along. We still have some of that info in the show notes, which has gotten, some reason the show notes have been getting jumbled depending on the service you're looking at it at. So if it's indecipherable, just head on over to steelcityunderground.com, click on podcast. You'll see it in some of the notes, and what that is it'll get you a game ticket and a tailgate ticket. So there's like a party that starts at like 8 or 9, goes to 1 o'clock. It's 4 or 5 hours, open bar, whatever you want to eat, et cetera, et cetera. And it's been a good partner of ours, GTE or Gameday Tailgate Experience, and got to experience that last year. You'll get to experience that with me. Hopefully, knock on wood, we end up down there, nice weather, and go do that again. That's a week before Thanksgiving, so That'll be kind of interesting. You go to Florida, it'll be real nice, and then you go eat all your turkey and go see the Steelers beat up on the Ravens or the Ratbirds or whatever you want to call them. But by the time we get that far in the season, maybe we'll get some of the rookies playing, Brian. Now that we're almost like 15 minutes into this with miscellaneous topics, but what else did we have to talk about? We're going to talk about the rookies in the draft again. I tried to get there. I was talking about the bingo, and we went into bingo is his name-o. But you look at the Steelers draft, and I don't know how contrarian we could be with this with only 6 picks, but maybe we could just talk about each guy and see who we think would make the biggest impact in the 2020 season. I don't know about like overall and looking down the road. Obviously, that's even more speculation, but right off the bat, I guess, instead of us picking one which way or the other and probably both picking the same guy, let's just start with Chase Claypool, man. He's big. He's fast. He's going to be a grown-ass man, I think. But I don't know that he comes out the gate right away. Didn't it take like 7 games for Martavis Bryant to finally get on the field? And then as soon as you saw him get on the field, it was like lightning in a bottle. So I'd anticipate, barring any type of injuries, I would anticipate maybe a little bit slower of a start. Mike Tomlin has always said wide receivers have a little bit of a higher learning curve coming into the National Football League, and we know Ben Roethlisberger, he doesn't really tolerate mistakes when it comes to route running or drop passes or anything like that. So Chase may have to just kind of sit under the learning tree for a little bit before he gets on the field. But I think this is a guy that could definitely make an impact. Maybe when we're talking about that Jacksonville, Baltimore, Thanksgiving type area, maybe we'll start seeing some of that and some big plays between him and Roethlisberger.
Yeah, I like look, I think realistically you want Chase Claypool to be the guy that has the biggest impact. You want him to be the guy that is going to make the biggest difference in the season simply because he's the top pick that you had. You want that offensive production. But you're absolutely right. Look, this is not a light receivers room. Whether or not Juju comes back and has a bounce back type season, whether he just is Juju of old because he's not injured at this point, whether it's the chemistry with Ben, whatever it may be, you've got a potential top receiver there in Juju Smith-Schuster. You've got Deontay Johnson coming into his second season where it looks like he can be a guy that maybe has greater contributions to make based on his rookie year. James Washington was coming on. There's a lot of guys in that room that could potentially step up. Now, it's funny because we oftentimes mock folks who like to make their Twitter takes read like this person, insert name, could have a great year. On the other hand, they could stink. Because it's so generic. We love making fun of that, and we do quite often.
But isn't that what you just said?
It is exactly what I just said, which is why I'm making fun of myself.
Non-committal.
Non-committal. The thing is, Ben is going to make a lot of difference here, and that's the key that we keep talking about. If Roethlisberger is not necessarily the Roethlisberger who threw for 3,000 or 5,000 plus yards, but if he's just the average quarterback of his stats, right? If he comes back and he's better than Mason and Duck were, all these guys are going to improve. There's not even a question of that, right? They're all going to contribute more. And again, that's why it becomes difficult. And as you mentioned, if Chase Claypool is able to pick up on the book, get his head into the study of the offensive scheme and knows what he's doing, that's going to help because, as you said, Ben doesn't like it when they mess up. It makes him start to look away from that direction, even though he'll always say the politically correct things. Oh, I would never not go to him just because of that. I'll give him another chance. But then it's like 6 months before he gets another chance.
And he did that with Bryant, too. He called him out many times.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So, and just thinking about that, not to cut you off, but I mean that's just that's kind of the way Ben has always been, and that's the way you got to be as a wide receiver too. Because as soon as you screw up, you got to be thinking, well, the ball's not coming my way anymore. And although Sammy Coates still got quite a few tossed in his direction, post mangling up his hands and fingers. But, unfortunately, you get some guys that it's the not for long league, and guys like that might drop a pass. Sammy Coates, Dante Moncrief, also in recent memory. But there were a lot of guys dropping balls last year, period. And I don't know if that had to deal with any type of transition or anything that happened with the passing of Darryl Drake as wide receivers coach, an interim guy like Ray Sherman. I have no idea. I'm not in the know or in the locker room, and nobody is unless they're a player, and they're not going to throw any coaches or anybody under the bus. But I always think about some of the turmoil with the offense being, one, Randy Fichtner wearing multiple caps. The guy had to be the offensive coordinator and all of a sudden be the quarterback's coach for, that would have been on autopilot, cruise control if it was just Ben. You know what I mean? How much do you have to coach a guy who has all these accolades and is a sure thing as a Hall of Famer? Then you get like these, you get a younger guy, a Mason Rudolph, inexperience, hasn't taken an NFL snap, has to be thrown out there, put out to the Wolves, the Piranhas, whatever it is. And then Doc Hodges, who's completely undrafted. Well, you're throwing all these different guys, and you still saw some progress with James Washington and Deontay Johnson, and that was without Ben. So you have to think they would take have a little bit of an uptick, and they're going to get the first crack at everything. When you see these depth charts come out, it wouldn't surprise me to see Chase Claypool listed behind guys like Deion Kane or Ryan Switzer, just based on the seniority. That's usually how it works. We're going to see, hopefully, if everything goes as planned or as normal, you'll see Claypool in the preseason. And I think he's going to surprise a lot of people. The Steelers very rarely get it wrong on wide receiver. It's almost a coin flip, you know what I mean, as to whether a guy – you get somebody that could just be average, like Marcus Wheaton. I don't know that that's where James Washington's trending. Deontay Johnson should be trending somewhere higher. Claypool could really bust all these things open. And then when you think about adding Eric Ebron and then Vance Old McDonald, are we going to go with that? Old McDonald.
There you go, Vance Old McDonald, because he's the old man in the room.
Yeah, but he's still beast.
Yes.
There's just so many things you could do with these bodies, and Claypool, some of the teams were thinking or talking or discussing as whether or not they could play him as a tight end. There's, Steelers like their physical receivers. I mean, you go back, even Hines Ward, there's a guy that the other guy that had some rules named after him. When people talk about whether or not, and this is a whole other topic, but I still think Hines is a fringe Hall of Famer because he's a guy that you can remember his face. You're not going to forget it. He still had 1,000 receptions. He's still the all-time franchise leader in that. And that number still, it's not Marvin Harrison. It's not Jerry Rice, but when you have rules named after you or inspired from your play, that tends to put you into more of a category of legendary as opposed to just great. You know what I mean? And definitely a legendary player for the franchise. So going back to even that was the prototype for like Juju Smith-Schuster. Hey, this guy's going to come in and knock your block off. And we saw him do it to Vontaze Burfict. We saw him do it to other people too, but that's the one that you really remember because, it was warranted, and people wanted to see somebody put that guy in his place, and Juju did. Claypool is capable of doing the same thing. I don't know if he has I don't even know that Juju has a mean streak, but when you get on the field, man, sometimes the mental aspect, you're a whole different person, you know what I mean? So it's going to be interesting. It's not just Claypool, it's how Claypool fits with all of these other pieces, as well as Ben having backed it into the fold. It just has me kind of excited about where the offense is going to go.
Yeah, I'm very excited about it. I do have to make a comment. I don't think Hines is a fringe Hall of Famer. I think Hines is a Hall of Famer simply because he's the greatest blocking running back in the history of the NFL.
Running back.
Or not running back, wide receiver. Sorry. Yeah, he blocks like a running back. So
yes.
I just wanted to get my 2 cents in there. I don't think he's fringe, but I do think that what will happen is he may never get in, or he may be a Donnie Shell type candidate that gets in way down the road, only because it's tough to get in as a wide receiver.
Well, if you heard the way I just explained it, that's the way I feel as well. But I feel he's fringe because was he even like a semifinalist last year? His name pops up every so often on this list, and there's always going to be newer guys that are going to come in and exactly as you said, kind of shove them down the list. I don't think anybody's just going to outright. Obviously, not a first ballot guy. He's not a Troy, but he's going to have to bide his time and eventually. Eventually I think he may see his day. he should. He should. I think for all the reasons you said, all the reasons I said, but I have that doubt in the back of my mind. That's the reason why I said fringe. I didn't mean that by any means to take away from the type of player or the type of career that he had. Obviously, I said he's great. He's definitely legendary as far as Steelers are concerned. But, as far as the Hall of Fame voters, you only get X amount of people you could vote in, and there's always going to be fresh blood coming in for the following season, guys that are going to be like a first ballot type that are going to, automatically toss their name in their hat in the ring there. So, yeah. Anyways, coming back to the rookies, coming back to Claypool, I think that's really good. A really good observation. I'm not christening him a Hines Ward, but I could christen him easily a Juju Smith-Schuster type right off the bat. He could have that type of impact. Like, you know what I mean? I don't know, about 600-700 yards, maybe a handful of touchdowns. It's certainly feasible depending on when he ends up coming in. If James Washington, falls asleep at the wheel again, and Ben gets mad at him, and he gets, put on the sideline, guess who's coming off the bench? Probably the shiny new toy. And the shiny new toy only needs to make one or two, clutch plays. Third down conversion, yep. 3rd and 8 across the middle, holds on to the ball, takes a pop, catches something down the sidelines, or like a 30-some yard reception, beats his coverage. That's all it's going to take. But anyways, moving on, because there's obviously more guys than Chase Claypool to talk about, and it's really easy to just come out and say, hey, he's the guy who's the second-round draft pick. He's the Steelers' top pick overall in this draft since they lacked a first-round pick, and say, hey, he's the one that's going to make the most impact. Of course, being in the position where he was selected, that's what you would expect. But there's some other players here on the roster that should at least get a little bit of attention, and then there's a few others that we may have to quell some of the hype around.
Yeah, the bottom line is, and we said this even before the draft, the Steelers were in this situation where the guys that they were going to bring in were not going to need to make the big impact this season. That hopefully they weren't going to be pressed into starting duty. They aren't going to be expected to be immediate contributors, that they're going to have the opportunity for growth and learning. That being said, when you start talking about the next set of picks, in the 3rd and the 4th rounds, Alex Highsmith may contribute in special teams. He may contribute as depth at outside linebacker. But you should not expect a lot. There's other guys that are on the depth chart above him right now because they've been in the system, they know the system. Ola and Tuzar Skipper are both there. Doesn't mean that either one of them will end up at the end of whatever training camp actually exists being ahead of Highsmith. But to come in and expect Alex Highsmith to be a mass contributor is an unrealistic expectation. And the same thing is true of Anthony McFarland. While he may find a role because he fits a niche within the running back room that isn't really there right now, that home run type of guy with the speed that he has, there's education, there's upswing, there's the fact that he's still going to be at least 3rd on the depth chart, if not 4th. So, the opportunities are going to be slim. You expect Benny Snell and Jalen Samuels to get the primary number of snaps when and if James Conner is hurt. I hate to say it that way, but it's just the way it is. And if James Conner is never hurt, then again, that even limits it even more. So again, to expect these guys who may not even get a lot of on-field time, may not even be active on game day at times, to really contribute is to set your expectations at an unrealistic level. If they happen to be forced into duty and they can produce, great. But your best wish is that they spend a year learning their trade.
Yeah, and particularly, well, I could look at a few examples here. I want to specifically point out at McFarland, everyone talking it up. Everybody talked up Benny Snell. Everyone talked up James Conner when he was a rookie. You go back to 2017, at a period of time where the Steelers had Le'Veon Bell, but he came into week 1. having no training camp because he had his little sit out and then he signed his franchise tag after all the cuts were made, after all the preseason was finished with, and he shows up, to practice with the team for a couple of days, basically, before they play Cleveland for that Week 1 game in 2017. And, Steelers ran 60 plays. Bell was out there for 43 of them, which was 72%. James Conner, who had been there for the whole camp and as a rookie, still only had 8 snaps in that game, 13%, which was only matched one other time throughout the season, all the way down to Week 15, which I'm going to assume, I believe, was against the New England Patriots. That Week 15 just seems to sit in the back of my brain a little bit, I don't forget that. It was 2 years in a row that they played on Week 15. So Connor in his rookie season, if you go through, and there was a game, or there were several weeks where he didn't even play. Week 3, he may have been banged up. I would have to go back and look at the injury report, but we do know he went down around Week 15 with that Patriots game. Week 16 and 17, he was gone, and they had brought in Stephen Ridley, who he gets signed. They play Week 16, I believe, was that the Christmas game? Was that the Houston game? And maybe 10 carries, or maybe it was after that. I don't know, but 10 snaps, and then 29 snaps where Bell only played maybe about half of the game, that final game of that season, the 2017 season, as some guys got some rest and things of that nature. So you take a look at this, and Connor had 8, 4, 6, 6, 5, 6, 4, 1. 8, 1, 3, 7, 9, not even double-digit snaps. That's the way the Steelers usually operate with their rookie running backs. We could even go and take a look at, let me see, I think I have Jalen Samuels on here even to a lesser extent. He was kind of backing up Connor. They had Ridley at that point too, and Ridley was playing something like didn't play at all Week 1, 3 snaps, 5 snaps, didn't play Week 4, 12, 6, 6, didn't play, 10, didn't play, 8, 6, 5, did not play, maybe released at some point. I think he was released after that. That was the offseason. He lasted the whole year with the team. I mean, that flies in the face of Connor, playing 64 snaps or whatever. And even in that case, you take a look at what Ridley had. They went and used Jalen Samuels a lot more, but Jalen Samuels never even saw the field for an entire month. He went 4 straight weeks until he played 2 snaps in Week 5, didn't play in Week 6 of that 2018 season. 7 snaps, 6 snaps, 18, 2, 4, 17. Then he went to 48, 39, 53, 31 over the course of basically December, the tail end of that season. But still, when you get down to it, he only played 20% of all of the offensive plays for that given year. And even if you go, I mean, it's really a mess when you look at last year because of everybody that was hurt and whatnot. I mean, Connor himself only played 33% of all the offensive snaps. That's just how absent he was last year. Samuel's a little more involved with 36. He got involved with some Wildcat stuff, as we may or may not want to remember. And Benny Snell, they tried to use Snell. He was out there against the Chargers Week 6, 29 snaps, half the game, 11 snaps against the Miami Dolphins. Maybe that might have been when he got banged up. I think he had like a shoulder or something. He was gone for like 3 weeks, comes back, does 36, 23, 24, 2, 9, and 25 as they tried to bring Connor back into the fold. So immediately when Connor comes back, even though Connor was only playing like 18 snaps out of 59, they didn't use Snell at all. It was like 2 for Snell. And I know there's some other guys that mixed in here. Trey Edmonds at one point had 21 and 35 snaps. You have, not to bore everybody with this, but even someone like Kareth White, 7, 9, 8, 6, 7, 4. That's where I see Anthony McFarland at, right there, in 10% or less. If he gets used at all, because he's got 2 guys standing in front of him, whereas Snell didn't really have anybody really in front of him. I mean, they tried to use Jalen Samuels, but they used him in a variety of ways. or just not at all. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's a mixed bag when it comes to running backs. The Steelers have always been a bell cow sort of team, and until last year with all of the injuries, I think we have to go all the way back to maybe 2012 when they were Rashard Mendenhall was still around, but he was basically in the doghouse in his way out, and they were using a mix of guys like Isaac Redman and Baron Batch and Jonathan Dwyer, and there was just it wasn't a running back by committee. It was just whoever had the hot hand, we were going to give them the ball. That's the reason why they focused on and went after and got Lev Bell. Well, you may see a similar thing this year, and it'll be painful to watch if it plays out the same way as that season did. Of course, finishing 8-8 and with no semblance of really a running game, even with the camp phenom Isaac Redman, although he did get seriously hurt to where his NFL career was basically over shortly thereafter that. So, not to speak poorly of him, but there were other complications there. Obviously, Mendenhall, fell off entirely after being having a sensational year or two there as well. And first round pick, right? Rashard Mendenhall, or second round pick?
Yeah,
first.
I can't remember now. First, I think.
Yeah, I'm just trying to think where it was. I'll find it. I'll find it here in a second. 20. Where did he go? Boy, I really hate when I have a brain fart like this. 2008, 23rd overall. I mean, I don't know. Are people still using 23rd overall picks? That's where I'm kind of getting at with this, where you're seeing guys, getting taken like a Kareem Hunt or a Elvin Kamara that are there, third round. James Conner, third rounder too, eighth guy taken in his draft at the running back position. So there were quite a few guys not only in that draft, but it seems to be you'd have to be like. There aren't very many guys going first round at running back position. They're usually maybe low first round, high second round anymore. So you got to downplay. I don't know that it downplays McFarland, but you still have to think, hey, the guy's a fourth round pick and he's behind 2-3 other guys on the depth chart. He's not going to just rise right to the top like a Bell or a Mendenhall that were taken much, much earlier in their drafts, where there was a definite need for the Steelers. There was a hole to fill there at the running back position.
Yeah, it's just not a realistic expectation. There's not a glaring hole. It's look, even when we were touting J.K. Dobbins, as you said, or even Cam Akers or John, Taylor, we basically said the best case scenario is that even though they've been picked, they don't really play much this year, and they're in line next year when there may be a hole in that room. So I just think it's unreal. It's unrealistic to expect too much out of these guys simply because I don't think they're going to get the opportunity to provide it. And to be honest, you kind of don't want them to, because if they don't get the opportunity, it's because the other guys are performing and are not hurt.
No, that's absolutely correct. And, we always talk about the second year leap with the running backs too. This is to give Anthony McFarland maybe that learning curve so he could jump right in next year, depending on what happens. Let's say James Conner does not return, then it's going to be an open season for Benny Snell, McFarland, and perhaps anyone else they add, be it a veteran that they bring in or somebody else that they may draft, maybe even with a higher pedigree, depending on what other needs they may have based on who else they end up retaining. Right now, we just know Bud Dupree's on a franchise tag for 1 year. We don't know if there's going to be any long-term deals or anything like that done, and usually that type of stuff doesn't even get hammered out until they report to camp anyways. But we will know before. The Steelers always operate where we don't discuss this stuff once the season starts. So you get into September, you'll know whether or not you got him beyond 1 year. And you still don't know, because you can go to next March, he could get tagged again. Who knows? Either something else can get worked out. So there's a lot of speculation when you're thinking, but there are draft picks next year. So it's not the end of the world. It seems like they got a full stable of young, capable men who are going to be able to run with the ball. Now, you get the other picks. You kind of said something about Highsmith already, and he kind of falls into the same category where he could ascend to be the chief guy, but I think he would have to really open up some eyes at camp, and I think he's still behind at least Ola. Depending on all these, the extra roster spots now, we don't know. The Steelers have had anywhere between 8 and 10 linebackers between inside, outside on their roster on a final 53-man roster. Now that you have a few extra spots, will they keep more linebackers? Does that open up a spot for somebody like Tuzar Skipper? What does that say for some other guys? You know what I mean? You got Ulysses Gilbert that's still there inside or whatever. But these guys, they're all competing. They're all going to have to do their due diligence with special teams. And Highsmith, if he opens up some eyes, he could ascend into that spot. But you know what? Ola right now has been there. He's been in the system for a few years, like you said, and he could end up being the chief backup at this point. But we shall see. Basically. Up until this point, he's been in there for what's looked like, a probable run play to be a run stopper and or go get the quarterback, one or the other. He hasn't really had any extended time to prove anything beyond that in a regular season capacity at this point. So that kind of leaves us with only the other three men that were taken. Do we end up going straight into the fourth round? You're thinking Kevin Dotson could be a grown-ass man too. But again, he's in the similar spot unless there's some injuries. I think he kind of sits and waits and learns for a year, but he does come into a position where the Steelers do need somebody as a backup guard. They have plenty of guys that are capable of playing tackle, maybe even playing guard too. We don't know how they're going to shift all of that around, but we do know they needed some young blood with those horses up front because some of those guys, they're starting to get a little longer in the tooth now. Not to say that they're necessarily, their career's over or anything like that. But Alejandro Villanueva, Marquise Pouncey, David DeCastro, they've either been doing this for a long time or they got a late start in the case of Villanueva, where now Ramon Foster is retired. You got a spot there. You still don't know if Matt Filer is going to definitely be the right tackle or there's going to be a competition there. So Dotson comes into a situation, and of course Stefan Wisniewski, who was signed, you could assume the veteran jumps right in and plays guard, but Kevin Dotson he has an opportunity not only to make the roster, but we'll see what else he does. I don't even know if they would use him on a special teams capacity at this point. He's probably more or less a chief backup, and will be even interesting to see if he has a helmet on game days. Maybe the entire season, who knows?
Yeah, look, as the professor has been wont to say, Matt Filer may bump inside the guard. He's probably who is going to give Wisniewski the biggest battle for that position. But that's going to depend on whether Chuks Okorafor or one of these other guys, Zach Banner, or whoever it may be, can step up and play, that right tackle position and take the job. Otherwise, Filer's going to stay where he is. And if that's the case, then maybe Dotson has an opportunity. But Dotson's still raw. He's, as much as I love the pick, as much as I see the upside for this kid, he's still raw. He needs the time to grow. I think if he enters the season as a backup, that's saying a lot, actually, considering where he's got to come from to where he's got to go. If he's got a helmet on game day, that's saying a lot. So I would think probably the most likely occurrence is he's kind of redshirting this year, as I think most of these guys are. I don't think he's really a candidate for special teams, maybe on the, field goal units and things like that. But I think primarily his best chance is to try and open some eyes up, grow really well, and become that B.J. Finney type swing guy that comes in when necessary, and hopefully it's not necessary.
No, you're absolutely right, and it's pretty much the hole that was left by B.J. Finney, though a lot of that is going to be served by the role of Stefan Wisniewski, who's also played center. I do believe that's where we're going to see. I think we'll see Stefan if we see camp. I keep hating to say that. I just got to keep going under the assumption that everything's going to go back to normal. We're not in Kansas anymore, but we're trying to get back there. So I think we'd see Wisniewski taking some snaps here in camp. I don't know, preseason maybe? I don't know. Veteran of that guy, that kind of caliber. I think you want to. It's odd because you don't have that many offensive linemen to play around with. Now, Hall of Fame game, you shouldn't see them at all. But some of these other games, some of these guys play a little bit longer, but you don't want another repeat of like Marquise Pouncey going down. So you don't usually see Pouncey or DeCastro out there. And that's also a reason why you see a lot of like ship-shape, ugly football penalties, et cetera, is because like the linemen they're getting moved around. They're trying to find coaches are looking to see how this guy works in one of these spots, and they have zero time to really gel and work together. And that doesn't bode so well for some of these, backup or inexperienced quarterbacks to show their wares as well. So we'll see how that works with Dotson. So that'll be interesting. I assume he would be a guy that's going to see a lot of playing time, second half type stuff when you get into the preseason. Let me see. We got two other defensive guys. I really hate to just throw the book out on Carlos Davis, but that's going to be whatever it's going to be. If there's a roster spot for a defensive tackle, he'll get in there, and he'll be a special teams guy, but he's going to be something of a project. I think the more intriguing one out of everyone that we've talked about here, Highsmith, if there was any chance for like an injury or somebody's dinged or there's a rotation, you might see him get out there a little bit. We expect Claypool to maybe make a bit of a splash, but I don't know what to think with Antoine Brooks. He's a safety that doesn't fit necessarily the traditional roles you would think that Terrell Edmonds or Minkah Fitzpatrick necessarily already have locked down. So he's not a guy that's going to jump in and start, but we're already starting to think or view him as maybe the Mark Barron replacement. If he could be that guy that we thought Marcus Allen could be when he was selected, to just come in and, follow around tight ends, follow around running backs, and knock these guys on their rear ends. So he looks like he has the potential to be that type of playmaker, and maybe because he didn't have that sort of maybe the fit or defined role, maybe wasn't as sought after by certain teams. It's all about scheme. It's all about system. And when he goes there in the 6th round of the Steelers have a need for this sort of role where maybe he plays 10 or 15 snaps and helps, cover the middle of the field. Ike Taylor was talking about that too, just kind of spying the quarterback, maybe like a Lamar Jackson, a mobile guy. So you add an extra DB out there. It's not that unheard of. You're thinking 6th round pick. How good's this guy? He's got to be a bum. I can hear the Yinzers saying it already. But they threw Cam Kelly out there from the AAF. Okay, and Cam Kelly had a very defined and very prominent presence until he screwed up and, of course, got kicked off the team. But they went with Cam Kelly. So if this guy could at least have his floor as a Cam Kelly, I think he'll see some playing time.
Yeah, again, as often is the case with these 5th, 6th, 7th level, round draft picks, his best avenue to the field is special teams. I think that's where he has the best opportunity to make contributions this season, but his upside is much greater than that. That's the reason I think they're excited about him. Is, as you said, potentially the Mark Barron replacement. Whether that's this season or next season, that's a big question mark. But certainly you would expect him to, if he is progressing in that vein, make those kind of strides as the season wears on. You may not see him doing anything but special teams early in the year, but if you start to see him get into the defense later in the season, taking snaps as a nickel backer or a dime backer or kind of that hybrid type role, that's going to be a good sign for Antoine Brooks. And then Mr. Davis at the end of the spectrum, as I've said many times, when you're a 7th round pick, if you're still on the practice squad at the end of camp, you got to feel pretty good about it.
Yeah.
So, look, you never know. They could find a way to get something out of him. It's the one guy on the group that I have the least optimism about being around long term. But hey, a lot of 7th round picks have made a career of being a backup for a long period of time, and maybe he can do that kind of contribution again. I think he probably starts on the practice squad. If he makes the 53, that's going to be a big win for the Steelers, or it means that they're in deep trouble with depth. I don't know which.
Well, hey, stranger things have happened. I liked my boy LT Walton, man. He gets some significant playing time due to injuries that one year. He held down the fort as best a young man thrown like a fish out of water into that spot can be. Now, just to throw this out there too, Brian. The oddball thing is with the 2020 season, it's going to be 53-man rosters expanded to 55 with 2 of those players brought in on game day to make it 55, but then they revert back to the practice squad after that. What else you got here is the practice squad is going to go from 10 to 12, so there's still some more opportunities for these young men to make the team. And then on top of that, your active game day roster, which was 46, now goes to 48, but you got provided one of those extra players activated as an offensive lineman. So you may see Dotson actually activated but never see the field in that sort of circumstance. And that this has always been a big thing. It just seems like if there's enough injuries, you almost don't have enough bodies to put out there. And I know that's been a growing concern for many years to have more active players on game day. I've always thought it was kind of, we understand it. It's because there's that, you're kind of reducing because of injuries. If you have some guys that don't go on IR and you got guys that aren't going to play, you have like 3 injured guys. So you only have 50 healthy bodies. The other team has a discernible advantage when it comes to substitutions if they could just put their 3 healthy, fresh bodies in and make it and rotate in theory. You know what I mean? Not that those bottom 3 are necessarily always going to do something on the field, but that's the reason why they've always done the active, at 46. Now it's 48 because of the 2 extra bodies that you're adding. So you're still going to have the same number of inactives. You're just going to have 2 more extra actives, and they're probably going to be guys from the practice squad that go on there. And unless they're absolutely required, I don't understand. That's just kind of weird to me. It's like they go up to that. I wonder if they get it. I'm gonna have to find out if they get a little bit of a pay bump for that. You know what I mean? Because they're technically active and then back to inactive. It's almost like Ross Ventrone all over again. But anyways, there'll be some opportunities there, but still, you can only have 11 guys on the field at any given moment. So, and when you have like your top 40, 45 that are cemented in stone, probably it still makes it a little difficult for these guys to carve out their little niche at this point in time. But it'll be interesting to see what's going to happen. I think it almost goes in the same pecking order as the way they were picked, except I think Brooks could have an opportunity to get, unless there's somebody else that comes out of nowhere like a Mike Hilton did several years ago, that shows up and then all of a sudden steals a spot, basically what he did. Yeah. It's his, you know what I mean? The opportunity's there, the door's open. He's going to have to take it, but it's a small window of opportunity. If he doesn't take it this year, they're going to be looking for another guy, whether it's somebody cut off another roster or drafting someone next year.
Yep, absolutely. There's no question about it. And there, if you're counting the absoluties that I say, I think that was the first one.
Yeah, I forget what's the thing that Zach always says. We caught each other doing all that, and I always do like this. I get it from my grandmother. My grandmother always used to have like this stuttering problem. I don't have a stutter problem. I just kind of have a, you know what I mean? The David Letterman thing, man. So it's funny how people point out these things. I guess I guess it's a good thing, because if they listen to you long enough and know you well enough from hearing these episodes, it means they tune in and they must love us. And I don't mind the critique every now and then, but it's funny because when you point these things out, now people notice them. Now they notice it, and now they're going to point it out to us. But if we point it out about other people that you end up watching, or you listen to the radio, everybody does it. Everybody does it. And that's why I'm not so, we don't get so worked up on making all these edits and cuts and taking things out. We're just real. We're just real people here. When we say words wrong and mispronounce names and get stats wrong, we'll at least try and steer you in the right direction, or at least tell you, hey, we don't know. But then again, we also say that because we might be sure of ourselves, but then again, we might not be sure of ourselves. So we'll make what we can make of it, just like those tweets. See what I did there?
I do.
Yeah, I'm being non-committal. I don't know. I'm pretty committal on what I said here, and I'm a guy that I could change my mind. I don't mind changing my mind. I don't mind being proven wrong. None of these things really offend me. It just makes me feel good when I call out the Cleveland Browns and say they're going to have a lousy season, that Freddie Kitchens wasn't going to be any good, and Odell Beckham was not going to be any better than he had been. And somehow they still end up finding me. And I found a few of those trolls not too long ago because, hey, you know what? We're in self-isolation and quarantine, locked away. So I had to have some fun, especially with the one guy that told me, this guy thinks Odell is washed. And I'm like, well, he had his lowest, a lot of low totals there, touchdowns and yards per reception and everything else. But hey, you do you and we'll do us. And it just feels good when you get one right every now and then, especially when you can needle the other fan base. So, Brian, I love.
Damn, there's two.
Yeah, you know what? I love needling you too, my friend. So anyways, I think that's about it, man. We could put a bow on this, and you know what? I don't know what else. We got some other things to talk about. They're mostly like things from other clickbait articles and just stupid posts we see around the interweb. So we may come up with another one of our little pet peeve episodes or something like that, just to go around and highlight some of these things, because I'm really getting sick of seeing sign Cam Newton everywhere that I look.
Oh God, yeah, and you know, as we've said in the past many times, for the loyal listeners out there and the guys who are the loyal feedback guys, tell us something you want us to talk about, and we'll do it. You know, we're all in the same boat right now where news is going to be limited, because I'm sure, as Joe and I talked earlier, I'm sure you really don't want to know about a virtual rookie mini camp.
Oh, I do.
There's not a whole heck of a lot to tell you.
I do. They used, I don't know. They watch film.
Yeah, there you go. Okay, end of story. Thanks.
Yeah, it kind of, you know what? It does suck though, because you have guys, Duck Hodges, man. That's how he came into this whole thing. He got an opportunity and he ran with it, and guys just don't have that same opportunity this year. It is unfortunate, but oh well. What's unfortunate is that we don't have any more to talk about right now. So, Brian, thanks for joining me once again.
Always glad to be back with you, my friend. And you know, you can needle me all you want. And just you know, I don't know whether we want to mention this or not, but we did get asked to guest on another show, and I don't know when it's coming out, but hey, you know, people can listen for it.
Yeah, it made a slight mention of it on the last episode with Zach, so I know you weren't there, but it was the Daily Degenerate podcast, or I believe he covers all NFL. I know he's a Falcons fan, so at least the gentleman that we spoke with. And that was kind of fun. And then I had a brain fart about when the Steelers were established, so I look like a complete buffoon to the rest of the entire listening base there.
That's exactly why I pointed it out.
Any chance you can to throw me under the bus, why don't you? So, hey, I could say this much. Bacon is an excellent breakfast food, but we can't take it any further than that. Cannot take it any further than that. Just got to let you know. I told them the last time, if you mess with my bacon, all bets are off. So
I love bacon. Bacon.
Bacon's good. I could dig on some swine, or I don't dig on swine, is what Samuel L. Jackson said in Pulp Fiction. But anyways, we are losing our minds, so we're not going to lose your attention here. We're going to let everyone go, and shoot us your messages if you're interested in the whole Jacksonville deal. Until then, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. My name is Joe. His name's Brian. And until next time, we encourage everyone out there to be safe, wash your hands, be good, cough into your elbow, and we'll catch you later.
We would like to thank you for listening and remind our listeners to follow us on social media and our website, www.steelcityunderground.com.